right? It's a hot topic these days. And then what to do if we do think we've been a victim of identity theft. If we suspect it or we know it, what do we do then? And I think on a personal level, it's very important. And also, we are seeing more and more cases. Probably, have any of you worked on any identity thing? Yeah, right. So more and more of the personal advocate cases involving identity theft. So that's why we're so happy to welcome Diane Childs today. She kindly came up from Salem, right? She works for the state of Oregon and in the specialty of identity theft. So please welcome Diane.
Thank you very much. Lois refers to me as the guest star, but quite frankly, I think all of you are guest stars. I am inspired by what you do, and this room full of people tells me that volunteerism is still alive and kicking. I was having a conversation with some folks a couple of days ago, and someone was talking about many of the service clubs, the Kiwanis, and those that they're seeing dwindling participation and membership. I hope that does grow. I'm hoping that the baby boomers grab onto that, and the millennials and all the other generations as well. So I'm with the state of Oregon, specifically the Department of Consumer and Business Services, and you probably know us more by what we do than by our name. Sometimes I'm referred to as being an employee of the Department of Justice, which is fine. We're the state of Oregon and one big happy family. So oh, it does. Okay, good. So I'll just tell you a little bit about our agency. We're made up of 5 divisions. So on the business side of us is Oregon OSHA, building codes, and workers' compensation. You probably all heard about that. And then on the consumer part, the insurance division, regulating insurance agents and insurance companies here in Oregon, and then the Division of Finance and Corporate Securities. Again, a very long name. But we regulate a number of financial products and services in the state of Oregon. That means we regulate mortgage bankers, brokers, loan originators, debt consolidators, loans, so short-term loans like payday loans, title loans, installment loans, the state chartered banks and credit unions. We also oversee securities, the registration of securities, meaning investments, and also the folks who sell investments here in the state of Oregon. And what am I missing? Pawn shops, also the trusts that people will set aside. They'll work with maybe a funeral home to put money aside to pay for the funeral of their services. You can do that. And those are in a trust, which is considered a security in the state of Oregon. So a whole lot of stuff. So that means about 9 years ago, I had a really steep learning curve of figuring all of this stuff out. And in 2007, we were given the responsibility of getting the word out about the Oregon Identity Theft Protection Act. So part of my work is talking to businesses, nonprofits, other organizations, because they have personal information. So I tell them about the law and what their responsibilities are to make sure to protect personal information. And then I talk to groups like you on the consumer part of it in regards to ID theft. So what we're going to talk about today is, of course, we know what ID theft is, but there's a distinction between ID theft and then credit card fraud. So ID theft is when your personal information, such as your social security number or a driver's license number, that's been stolen. ID theft, your identity. On the other hand, credit card theft is that somebody steals your credit card. And these days, it doesn't have to be the plastic card that they're taking. They can get the number. So that would be credit card fraud. But it's all under that big umbrella of ID theft. We're going to talk about the different ways that it happens, how the thieves are, their tactics that they're using to get our identification, what we can do to protect ourselves so we don't have to run into the situation of, oh gosh, what do I do? And I'm panicked and I need to protect myself. And then some resources that you can all have. Now, my original intent was to print out this PowerPoint, but I was on vacation right before today. So I thought about it, but I actually didn't do it. So I can send you the PowerPoint electronically. We are trying also to keep cut down on our paper. So I'm happy, I'll go ahead and send it to you, and then you can pass it on. So these are the pieces of ID we need to protect. Out of these three pieces here, which is the most coveted among ID thieves? Social Security number, absolutely. And where should that card be? Where should that be kept?
At home in a lockbox.
Yeah.
I love that. Is it Sharon? Sharon, at home in a lockbox, in a locking file cabinet or somewhere. It should not be carried with you at all. Zero, zilch, nada. Yes?
Can I make a point because of where you are?
Absolutely.
And that's that the Medicare card has that number on it,
Yep.
and it's really easy to spot. And I tell my clients, do not carry that card either.
Absolutely. And Sharon, when I go out through Oregon, can I use you as an example? I'm going to say Sharon in Portland says, and you better listen. You're absolutely right. And some people get a little nervous about, well, but I have to have that card. What if there's a medical emergency? You will be treated. You're not going to be put on a gurney in the hallway with a little sign that says, does not have Medicare card. You will be treated. We're all in electronic globally, so that number can be had by a medical professional. So thank you, Sharon. So all of these pieces of ID are considered personal identifying information in the state of Oregon under law, which means anyone who requests this information from you for a legitimate business purpose, they now have the responsibility of safeguarding it, whether it's in paper format or whether it's electronically. So now, they're safeguarding it, that's the responsibility, but there have been breaches, as we know, but we'll talk a little bit about that. So if this information gets out, first of all, it's a pain for us. Sometimes it'll take some time. People have had to take time off from work. There's money involved. Some people have had their social security number stolen, and I've heard in some cases they've had to hire an attorney to just go through all of this. That's, I think, an extreme example. But when you have ID stolen, like the social security number, it will keep popping up like a bad weed in your garden. It seems like over and over and over again. That's why it's so important to protect this. And I've gotten to the point when I started working this program back in 2007, is I specifically asked, when I'm asked for my SSN, do you need this for legitimate business purpose? For a while, unscientifically, it was about 50-50 that they said that they needed it. So that told me that there were still forms out there that were saying social security number. Every once in a while I run into that, or the driver's license number. I don't give that information out. I really ask. And one of the things that's really big is like for employment. Years ago, that blank spot used to be on an application. Hopefully no longer, because an employer, prospective employer, does not need that number until they hire you. So they're going to do a background check or for tax purposes. And we don't want to get to the point where our credit is damaged because of this. So that's why it's really important. One of the things that I passed out here in addition to the brochure, is this right here. The third one down is your free credit report. You can get that free credit report every year from the 3 major credit reporting agencies. It's absolutely free. Don't ever pay for your credit report. Right there. And you can stagger it, maybe once a quarter, and get one, and then get another, and then get another. The reason why you want to do that 2 ways is that you want to be checking in case someone is using your credit for a reason, and if there's a mistake that's made, and that might be hurting your credit rating as far as borrowing money or your insurance rates or what have you. So it's always a good idea to look at it. Up at the top, of course, breaches. There's a number of data breaches that happened. What are some of the ones that you remember that's been out there that were big? Target? Yeah?
The IRS.
The IRS? Well, actually, it's not a breach, but people are using social security numbers, and they're making up the tax forms in order to do that, yeah. But the IRS does have, I think, an antiquated system with that. So, what else?
Catholic Church.
The Catholic Church?
Citibank.
Yeah. Citibank? Yeah. Pardon me?
Title company.
Was there a title company that had data breach?
That I heard.
Oh, in California, okay.
State of Oregon unemployment.
Yes, state of Oregon unemployment last fall. Yeah, exactly. So they happen. A lot of times is that the thieves are finding the key to unlock their systems and getting into the information. Second one, phishing schemes. Is everyone familiar with that word? Anyone not familiar? Okay. Phishing. It's spelled H-I-S. Because these are when someone impersonates maybe the government, a company or something, or they come up with a way to get your information. So they throw out the bait, like, how would you like a free trip? Maybe in an email or something, but we need this information. Or they pretend, like last fall, right before the holidays, they're Amazon and sent an email out, and I'll get to that, but they sent an email out about doing a survey and getting a $100 gift card. So that's the bait. Usually it's money, usually it's a trip, it's something that is going to engage us for a moment and make us think of, oh, isn't that fun, and then we give up our information to it. That's a
A
phishing
huge
scheme.
one that affected seniors is the grandparents.
The grandparents
And it's
scheme.
still happening.
Yeah. And that's mainly for money. Usually they're looking for money, but you're absolutely right. It astounds me that that one is still out there, but it also tells me it's working. The thieves are very successful, and that's why it happens. Yes?
I just got one recently from Amazon saying that my order was in. It was a scam.
It wasn't a
It
scam?
was a scam.
Oh, it was a scam because you didn't order anything. Yeah. Yeah, thieves are able to send out an email. I'll show you one in just a moment, the one that I talked about. And there was a question over here first.
I keep getting tracked in my spam filter saying my American Express account has had some unauthorized activity. I haven't had an American Express account in 30 years. Okay, fine, delete.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the ones we know about. Yes.
Yeah, going back to the IDs cards, people ask me for my address, they ask me for my email, my phone number. I don't want to give them my phone number, and I think they're going to throw advertising at me. Is it required in some cases? I mean,
It's not required.
Yeah.
If you don't want to give it, you don't have to give it. By the way, that information there is not protected. So they can ask for that and they can get that information. So if you notice in the law, your birth date is not protected information, and that's because it's so easily gotten. So that's why, yeah, there's going to be information out there. Third one, good old-fashioned thievery, meaning that thieves are looking for this stuff. So dumpsters in the back of strip malls or grocery stores or apartment buildings, they're banking on the fact that someone is going to be lazy with their documents and not shred them. So they're going to be back there. We've had cases, we've had enforcement cases, including one a couple years ago in Gresham with an insurance agent who, when he took over an agency, did not want to pay the money to get all the documents shredded, and dumped them in a dumpster, and someone found it. It was like over 1,000 records or something like that. So the penalty we gave him was far and away larger than what he would have paid if he had had it shredded. And then negligence, this is kind of all over the board. Employees, where they have information and they're not logging in, logging out correctly, they're not following safety protocols within their company to do that. That happens a lot. And just sometimes, which we've seen in some cases, is there's just been a lapse in the security systems they have. Companies will say, well, we just can't afford to move to the, to the 21st century and do that. But then if they don't, if there's a data breach, that can really affect their bottom line. Yes?
I understand that I could like Google that I wanted to buy a social security number or something. I could go online and buy a social security number for like $20 or something.
I guess it's possible.
I was like on TV on a news program or something.
Yeah, on the black market, you can get it. This was several years ago, but I listened to an expert, and he said on the black market, a social security number would go anywhere from $200 to $250.
It's cheaper now.
Yeah. So it's cheaper.
Tesla Diane, also, what about mail theft? People that just drive by and open mailboxes and
Well, not only, mailboxes, that's one. For those who have non-lockbox out in the rural areas, that's not so good, maybe getting a post office box. But I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I think I have on my list later on is if you do have a post office box, and let's say you're doing errands, and you get your mail out, you put it in your car, and then you go to Fred Meyer, you go somewhere else, and that stuff is right there. So be aware of that. If you have a glove box that's locked, that's lockable, put it in there. So yeah, exactly. That's happening more and more with online bill paying, which I like, is that if you're able to do that, checks, if you're getting checks somewhere on a regular basis, paper checks, consider doing direct deposit. Then you don't have to worry about a check being stolen.
Dumpster diving. In our neighborhood, there's a couple in a white van that comes around regularly just before the trash pickup and goes through the recycling bin where the papers are. And they're known, but there is nothing that has been done about it because apparently that's quasi-legal and they just continue to do it.
Well, it probably would be. They could probably, if that is quasi-legal. But here's the thing: is that hopefully people in that area know, and so if they are going to get rid of personal information, they shred it into confetti pieces, so that those people in the van don't get it.
There are also shredding days. I know in our area there's going to be a shredding day in the next couple of weeks. Up to 5 boxes, 5 cardboard big paper boxes full for no charge.
Take advantage of those. Yeah. If you have a basement, closet, storage facility, anything that have documents in it, get rid of those. Check with whether it is state, federal, the IRS, your bank. They all going to have different dates or years that you keep that information. So check with them and see how long you have to keep records. I think more and more it's less and less that you have to keep records. So we talked about data breaches, but this stuff happens all the time. Like I said, they're finding the key to get into these systems. They're hacking into them. They're figuring out how to get in. They are depositing what's called malicious software, also known as malware. And what that is that they just push that in there, and this software can root around and look for this information, and it can be very stealth. A lot of times companies have not found out that somebody has been in there, or the software has been in there and is grabbing this information. It's just kind of like making a beeline out, and they're getting that information. So that's how it works. And then I just was checking here. So insurance companies, this was earlier in the year, Anthem, 80 million people were affected with the Anthem one. I think a couple of thousand here in Oregon had Anthem insurance policies. Then of course Target, 70 million people were affected by that one. I use cash when I go to Target. Or if I don't have cash, I use a credit card. I don't use my debit card. And then financial, JP Morgan Chase. And these numbers affected 76 million consumers and 7 small businesses. So imagine a small business, you're running a small margin anyhow, and then to have that happen, that can't be a lot of fun. Earlier, I think Sharon talked about the IRS. Yes, Oregon has had problems the last 2 years. I actually have a coworker who a year and a half ago happened to him. Day before filing day, they found out that somebody had already used their social security number, his wife's, and had already gotten the refund. And how it affected them is that they had to have up-to-date records because their son was applying for college and they needed that for financial aid, and it delayed them. So, and it will delay your refund 6-7 months in order to do that. And here's how the IRS works, is that you file and they will send you the refund, no questions asked, because that is under, under law. They are to send those refunds out as soon as they can. And then it's afterwards they're doing their checking. That's how it works. So it's, then the other side is, well, do we all wait to make sure all of the, everything works, but then we wait for our refund. So maybe, and I'm harkening back to my Oregon Department of Revenue days, is that people figure out a way to where they don't get a refund, but maybe figure out a way where that doesn't even come into the picture. Yes?
I personally also had this happen, plus I had a whole bunch of cases of this happen because it was huge here in Oregon.
Yes, it was.
Federal taxes.
Absolutely.
And the issue that I have with the IRS is that they issue the refund, but they issue it on a card. a credit card that's good anywhere, and there's no way to trace it back to the person that stole your identity. And they say that they do that because they don't want to discriminate against people that don't have a bank account. But it's crazy, because we're calling them on the phone and we're telling them, and they're still processing it and sending the refund on a credit card to the people that they know that it's fraudulent
Okay.
at the time. It was a crazy deal.
Are they still doing that?
I don't know what they're gonna do this year
Okay.
or last year.
You're saying the Department of Revenue? did
Yes,
that? State of Oregon?
yeah, they look on the phone and they can tell the phone number that you're calling from. You've lived in the house for 15 years, you filed everything from that address for 15 years. They've got the tax return in front of them. It's in Florida. The person is like a second person on there. They won't really give you any information about it. But yet they're going to process it and they're going to send that refund, and they're doing it on like a card.
And this is the department, this is the state.
This is the IRS.
This is the IRS.
This is the
Okay.
federal government.
Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with that because we have it sent to our bank account.
Right, this was not the state of
Okay,
Oregon, but
okay.
they had their own problems
Yeah.
with their employees.
Yeah, everyone does. And here, here's the thing is that sometimes it's catching up to the way that these are working. And these are not individual people who are getting thousands and millions of this information. This is organized crime, whether it's overseas or here in the United States. So that's what we're up against. So,
I'm hoping that they would not be issuing it on those cards like that. I mean,
have you contacted your congressman about that?
I haven't.
It's not federal.
It's not federal, it's
I
state?
think that IRS do not put it on debit cards. We both are in the income tax business.
Those do taxes.
Yeah.
And it had a lot.
They get to direct deposit on a check.
But they also will issue
Debit card?
a card.
IRS?
Yeah, they will. IRS will.
Well, they're certainly changing their procedures given the amount of fraud that has occurred.
Yes, they're trying to.
With what's going on, so that very well
We
may change.
experienced a lot less this tax season than the previous one was
That's right.
amazing.
Up exponentially.
Yeah.
Well, it's the voices out there sometimes that get things done. So contacting state legislators and contacting your congressman, U.S. congressman or woman to make some changes. Yes?
Yeah, not to raise politics, but this is a political problem. I mean, Congress raised hell with the IRS because they hate the IRS, and they're the ones that passed the law that said they have to give the refund as soon as the returns file, which makes no
30 to
sense.
60 days. I can't
You
remember.
know, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They'll change.
They won't change unless Congress does
Congress-
something. But then they
That
spend all
Congress
their
is on
time
another issue.
worrying.
Oh, yeah, we're not even going there. Okay. So we know that we know it has an issue early, this is an issue.
So I can tell people that have this happen, so they have all their information, they've done a fraudulent tax return, but now are they selling the social security number on the internet? Or, I mean, they still have all the information.
They might be, if they were successful in getting the refund, they might just stick with that and, stick with that number. I don't know if they're selling it or where that's going afterwards.
Because a lot of people have had this happen to them now, and then their fear is, what do they do now? Their information is out there, how do they protect themselves?
When it comes to the IRS, you will be given, you have to contact them and you'll be given another number that you file with. It's not your social security number. So you're given another number.
You're given a PIN
Yeah.
that you can use to file your next year's return.
Correct. So that you don't use that number.
And that PIN will change every January, and you should be getting the PIN by mail, thank you very much, and not by computer.
So the earlier the better up there for people. If you're expecting a refund, file early. This is your prevention here. If you file early, then you get in front of the thief, just in case. So if you're able to, is to do that. It's just like my coworker who filed the day before. I'm not making any judgment there. A lot of people do. But in that case, it turned everything in a tailspin there. Report it. So report it to the Federal Trade Commission. You can go to their site. It's www.ftc.gov. They are not a law enforcement arm, if you will. They're not looking at things individually. What you're doing here is that you're documenting it. You're documenting it. If there's an issue, you print out that complaint and then you submit it online. You contact the IRS. They will give you instructions. You can go to their site, www.irs.gov. In their search engine, just type identity theft, and they have a number of pages, and they'll show you, they'll tell you what you need to do step by step. And then, how many of you have, or people you're working with, have an account with Social Security Administration? Okay, great.
Social Security?
Yeah, where you can open up an account online and you can get into your information anytime you want to, 24/7. And that's what the Social Security Administration is encouraging people to do. You know, for a number of years, they weren't sending out those statements. I believe they now have started again. But you can get to this information. What's nice about this information is that if there's a mistake, there's ways to correct it, all kinds of things there. But you just go to www.ssa.gov, and on there there'll be a logo that says My Account. Now, before you start, when you go in the process of the account, you have to know a little bit about your financial background, like who you have loans with and that type of thing. So someone told, my coworker told me that. So what I did is I got one of my credit reports so that I was acclimated to some of the past things. It's really hard to remember back because they will ask you questions to make sure you are who you are. So you might want to do that first if you want to open up an account, and then you can just write that information in and you have an account. You have a username and a password, and you can get, like I said, you can get into this information whenever you want. We already talked about this as far as Social Security number, but it behooves us to say, do not carry this around. Every once in a while I hear people that do. It's usually an older generation that does, not the younger generation. And by no means don't do, well, I'll just write it on a piece of paper and keep it in the wallet. Same kind of principle, so don't do that. So an example of a phishing scheme, or what I believe was a phishing scheme, and again, this is the bait: a free trip, free airline tickets, free hotel stay. Isn't this great? Call this number, give this your RSVP number, and in the course of this conversation, they'll probably ask for a credit card. They might say, we need to hold this reservation for you with a credit card, even though it's free. Or there are some incidentals attached to this, taxes, whatever fees, so we need a credit card. You're excited about the trip. You're not thinking you give it to them. And do the vouchers ever come? Oh, no. Yeah, because they're fishing for information. Here's the Amazon one. I actually got this last year, right before the holidays. And number of problems on this one. Let's see if this works. Here we go. So what I look for, as a former journalism major, I love grammar and spelling. A lot of grammatical and spelling issues. Holidays, that's possessive when it should be plural. Space right there. Amazon doesn't send out stuff like that. Up at the top, and even here, the survey department, actually the servery department, there's an extra R in there. But this one says, they're just asking you how often do you shop online at Amazon? And shop online at Amazon, big caps, with a $100 gift e-card to show our appreciation capitalized. So either this person didn't pay attention in spelling, grammar, whatever classes, or it is someone from out of the country. Don't have a firm grasp on the English language, so always look for that. And this is a too good to be true thing. Is Amazon going to give out a $100 gift card? Probably not. They've got to perfect that drone distribution thing, so they need the money to do that, don't they? Okay. How many of you have smartphones? Okay. Pretty ubiquitous out there, so I know some people don't. I met a woman a couple days ago who doesn't have any cell phone at all, whether it's smart or whatever. Okay, there's another one. All right. So, text. Now, I don't usually talk on the phone with my daughters, almost 25, almost 21, because we text a lot. So, I text. That's one way that I am able to correspond with my daughters. But in this, so there's a lot of texting going on, obviously, not a lot of phone calling. This is a screenshot of my phone a couple of months ago at 9 o'clock in the morning. And this was a text to me. I don't know anyone in the 210 area code. I don't know who Lathans and 51 is. Want to know my secret, text me back, blah, blah, blah. So I just deleted that one. A couple of years ago, there were companies that would send out texts en masse, and then they say, if you want these to stop, then just text back, stop. I would suggest not doing that whatsoever, because the thieves have caught on to that. So in this case, there could have been that on there, but if you do that, that's telling them there's someone behind this number. This is a live body. It's the same thing as picking up the phone, and I know a lot of seniors will always pick up their phone, and they'll tell me as I'm out and about, I get the same call at 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's about X, and I don't want this. What can I do? And I say, it's simple, don't pick up the phone. Oh, but what if it's an emergency or what have you? And then I say, get caller ID. I know that there's an expense, but it's a small expense. But get caller ID. If the number is not familiar to you, don't pick it up, because all you're doing is inviting the scammers to continually call you. Yes?
I used to get calls from a glass company who wanted to fix my windshields all the time. And they would call back every couple of months. And I keep telling them, I don't want to, I'm sorry, I don't want your service, every time. And finally I got smart and I said, oh, just a minute. And I set the phone down on top of the TV, and I went back and I was watching my program. A little while later I went back and they were on the phone. Then the phone rings again. Well, that wasn't really, excuse me, I'm busy, just a second. And I set them down again. They quit calling.
Oh, that's one way to do it. The other way is to get on the do not call registry. So a lot of people say, well, that does no good. Okay, here's why part of it does no good, because the scammers don't care, right? If you're on the do not call list, they don't care. And if you try to argue with them, they don't care, or they hang up on you, or they call you bad names. But if it's a legitimate company and they're calling you and you say, I'm on the do not call list and I will report you, then they will apologize and hang up. So that's one way to do it, is to get on the do not call list.
Diane?
Yes?
Isn't there also the rule of three that if that same company calls you back, you're on the no-call list, and they call you back 3 times, that you can actually file with the AG, Attorney General's office?
I would say 1 time, or even 2 times.
Yeah, I think after 3, though, that they will try to recoup money, that they actually get fined. So that was a big deal that I have known about. And I used to get a ton of telemarketing calls. So I would always call, say, you're on notice number 1, okay? I will call the Attorney General's office if you call back again. And of course they call back again. 3rd time, all you do is file the complaint with the AG's office.
Yeah, they want to know what they are. They do want to know about it. I tell them first time around, I'm pretty impatient, and I'll just say, I'm on the do not call list. Do not call me. That's the whole point. So, and I get less calls now that I have just a smartphone. We don't have a landline anymore, and haven't for, gosh, over 10 years now. So I get less. Social media. Anyone on social media? Okay, sometimes it's a way to follow children, grandchildren, friends from all over the place. It is kind of nice. But when you go on a vacation and you're out of the country or out of state and you're posting pictures, look how much fun we're having. Guess who might be also looking at that? If no one's watching your home, if no one's there and you don't have security, then they might figure out a way of finding you and robbing you. So post those pictures after you get home and say, look what a wonderful time that we've had. Be careful about what you're posting. Names, pets' names, all kinds of things. And the reason why some people use those as their password. They will use those easily. So just be careful about who you are, what information you're putting on there, who you are liking, inviting as friends. A couple weeks ago, I got a friend request from Tracy Richardson, who is my best friend, and I thought, well, that's weird, we're already friends, aren't we? So I went back and, put on the picture, that was not Tracy whatsoever. So be careful about those. I'm very selective about who I friend with. The ones that come up on Facebook, you might know X. To me, it's not really the point of how many friends I have. It's the point of being able to keep up with folks that I don't normally see. So I have a question. Yes?
I don't really use Facebook, but for some reason, they got my cell number. So I'm getting these texts from Facebook.
Okay, what I would do is I would contact Facebook and tell them, please stop. Yeah.
I wonder if that's legitimate.
Yeah.
It's
Might not be
possible,
Facebook.
but I would contact Facebook, yeah, and don't respond to the text at all, like I said earlier. Did I see it? Yes.
Emails. You may go on the people who have stolen your friend's email. And you got this email from Joe Blow. I have got this great deal for you and so on and so forth. It's not Joe. And what sort of protection can Joe take at this point?
Joe can change his email address.
Basically.
Yeah. I've had mine, my email address within like a couple months of each other as someone's hijacked mine. And so I've had to go in and change my password. So yeah, that's what you won't be able to do. Emails that look like they come from friends or family members who are stranded somewhere and need money wired to them, or send a reloadable card to them. Wiring, reloadable card are two of the things to look out for because they cannot be traced or virtually not traced. So be careful about that. Contact the person who is supposedly stranded, and you'll probably find out, no, I'm here in Colorado at my house and everything is going well. So ask those questions. Prevention again, computer, cell phone, one and the same if you have a smartphone. They're just a little tiny computer and they're doing a lot of stuff. I just got done working at a very large event, or a state fair, and people lose their cell phones. And so that's what I had suggested is people who don't reclaim their cell phones is that somehow that they be destroyed in a way that the hard drive, because it's a computer, that the hard drive be disposed of as well. So anyone know how, I don't know with the cell phone how to do it, but I'm sure YouTube could show you.
There's a little smart card.
There's a little card in there. Does anyone know how to destroy your hard drive in your computer?
I was a computer scientist.
Oh, okay. Well, you know how I found out how to do it? I just went on YouTube. Put in what my computer was, because I got a new computer. I took out my hard drive. I put on my safety goggles. I went out on the driveway with a hammer, and I had at it. Cheap therapy. So if you do that, because you've got to destroy that, and then you shake it, and if it sounds like rice, then you've done it. Got rid of everything. So, okay, so if you have a computer, virus and malware protection, firewall, the whole 9 yards. You would have a lock on your door at home, right? And locks on your windows. The same kind of principle here. And you need to update this as well. But be careful about the pop-ups that say your subscription is up. Make sure you know what company that you're with and when your subscription is up. Because a lot of times people have been duped into giving information and payment to a company that doesn't exist. You're not getting anything at all. Anyone here, is it Windows 7? Anyone here have old software? Is it Windows 7 that they're no longer
No,
supporting?
it was XP.
XP,
And I
okay.
had to move it to Windows 7.
Yeah, XP had turned into Swiss cheese. A lot of old
It
not
was the best
supported.
one they had.
App updates. There are now apps on your computer, because I have them, they just are there. But also on our cell phones, remember our mini computers. We have apps, and every once in a while, we will get updates. Don't ignore those updates, because many times they have security patches that they have found, somebody's able to slip through, so then they have done some work to send a patch out. So don't ignore those, make sure that those are downloaded. Use strong passwords. I had to change my password right before I went on vacation. No, actually during it. We have to change ours every 3 months at work. And they can't be the same ones. If you try to have the same thing, it will reject it, so you have to start all over again. So therefore, I had to come up with another one. And I have all my passwords and my usernames written down, because they're not in a computer, at home, in a safe place, because sometimes I have to refer to them.
Yeah, no, actually, I was gonna say with passwords, if you make your password a phrase, just let me do this, okay? But you substitute some of the characters for numbers and uppercase a few of them, then it's real easy for you to remember. It's more randomized, and a password cracking program couldn't find it because it's not just a plain word. But if you use like somebody's name and numbers around it or something like that, that's way easy to crack. So a phrase.
Yeah, it's a favorite saying, and use the first letters of each word.
Mine for a long time was just get out of my face.
Well, I'm gonna use that
But,
for this time when
but
I
a couple of
change
them,
mine.
were, a couple of things were truncated, but that's what I remembered, and it,
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it, yes.
Have you had any complaints or see any problems? The new services now is you sign up with a password type provider and you just have one password, one username, you log in, and then through that company, they know all your accounts. They have all your passwords.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way that the younger generation is really using this now.
There's one called Password Corral, and I don't know the other ones, but there are those services out there. All I know about them really is what I learned from Brent Husberger from the Oregonian. He did, and all of his stuff is archived. So if you want, he did an exhaustive research on all of those. So if you want to go in and look at his archived articles and look for that. But it's been over a year, so some of them might have changed. So I haven't heard whether some are good or bad or indifferent, but that's one way to do it, where you have just one password. And
I
then
just
it's out
wondered
there.
how safe or how, I mean, if that service was to be hacked, they would have everything.
They would have those, yeah. So, I'm sticking with my piece of paper in a safe place in my home. But some of them are up here as well. Did I have a question
Yeah.
here? Yes.
Speaking of the generation differences, many of the people that I've worked with here don't know how to use computers.
Yes.
Or they're very, very basic. And I would say I'm still an amateur. And still am a little bit afraid or nervous about using my computer. What do you think we ought to do about that in Elders in Action? I mean, because so much now is on the computer, and so much is on.
Well, I think it comes down to people's comfort with it. I've run across people who say, I don't like computers, they scare me, I'm afraid of them. Well, then don't have one. Or a lot of things are electronic now, but find somebody, like your advocate, to help you with it if they don't want to. So yeah, we have to have a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to this. But we do as well when we're in our homes and we don't know who's, in our neighborhood scamming, the face-to-face kind of scamming as well. So that's why we have to think about, this is that intuition thing. Is that a lot of times we don't act on that inner intuition that's saying something else right here because we want to be polite or we want something, if we want, like the free trip or something. But really listen to yourself and thinking, oh, I can't put my finger on it, but something about this makes me nervous. And then, don't act on that. Did I say that question? Yes.
And Multnomah County Library has courses for seniors on computers. AARP has a course coming up in a couple of weeks on using your smartphone. So there's things around.
Good resources, thank you. That's great. Yeah, to just get the basics when it comes to that. Be aware of different kind of links and emails in your emails or on your smartphone or whatever. If it's not familiar to you, do not click on it. I try to, like on Facebook, when people are sending out articles, if it says NewYorkTimes.com on it, I'll click on it. But if it's I can't think of one that comes up that I'm not familiar with, I'm not going to click on it. Even if it's from my friend Marilyn, and she has shared that on Facebook, I stay away from those. I'm going to say the same thing about cell phones, but I think I did. Just be really careful about it if you have a smartphone, because remember, that's a computer as well. What is the first line of defense with your cell phone?
Password.
Yep. Have a password on there. And I was just going to say something that I can't remember. Oh, the password, change it out every once in a while, don't give it out. My husband does not know what my password is, and I don't know what his is.
The new phones are fingerprints.
Pardon me?
The new phones.
There are some phones that have
they're
fingerprints, but there have been some fingerprinted ones that some thieves have been able to get through them.
Well, now then Apple or whatever has your fingerprint. I mean,
Right?
I don't know.
Well, they don't have it, they encrypt everything before.
Yeah, but somebody break into that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just on the machine.
Apple's actually got really high security compared to others.
They do. You very rarely hear about people getting into a Mac.
Well, I got my new cell phone and it was, the first thing they want is your fingerprint instead of the password. And so it's just kind of like, wow.
Yeah. I still have the password. Another thing with phones is that my husband and I have an app, like if I misplace my phone, he can find it. And if he misplaces his phone, I can find it through this app. It sends a signal, you you're able to do that. So that might be something you want to
It would
consider.
turn it on if it's off, is that what it does?
Pardon me?
It would turn it on if it's off and then ring?
It would find it. It would find where the phone is. So you
Because
visit
it's a
it.
GPS locator program.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you have to
Never had to
activate
use
it. And so you may have to check with your phone provider on how to activate it. Because it's not like automatically turned on your phone.
It's not?
Yeah.
Because we experimented with it and it's on.
Because I went into the
Yeah.
Apple store and that guy said mine wasn't turned on.
Yeah.
So then he showed me how to turn it on.
Yeah, if you get one of those apps, follow the
It's
directions.
kind of the
what
ones in
they
the
say.
news that you've been seeing where somebody's gotten their stuff stolen and they're able to find where the criminals are with the stuff.
Yeah, and there's some apps where you can actually just render the phone useless too, in case someone wants to use it. And I was just gonna say something like
Yeah,
that.
we tried many times to unlock it. and
Yeah,
shut down.
it will shut, just like an ATM card. You know, you pop the ATM, put the card in there, and you try to figure out that it will, I think the third time around, take the card. Because it's assuming that someone has stolen the card.
On the apps update, doesn't that happen automatically on the phone?
The app updates, on my phone, it doesn't. It shows that there is one number on there, a little round thing, and I actually have to go in there, click on update, and then tell it to update.
Because I never do that, and it seems to have update on itself.
Okay, I have, it tells me you have some updates, and then I
You set
update
that
it.
on your phone, on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer, I'm sometimes an old-fashioned gal. And I'm very careful about when things come up and they say, you know, can we do the automatic locator on you? A lot of times I'll look at that, like MapQuest. In order to get up here, I use MapQuest, and so it knows where I'm at. I like to do that. But other, you know, you can turn that off in your phone, in your settings, you can do that. I talked about this with job seeking, is being careful about this. A lot of times people are looking for a job. They might be the most vulnerable. So be careful about any sites that is mimicking another site. Be careful about that. Emails that would say we got your resume, there's no experience needed, there's an upfront fee. Again, these are all those intuition types of things. But be very careful. Do not give out that social security number whatsoever. Tell people who are, if they're seeking employment, and I know that can be very difficult if they can't find something, but having them very careful. The only time you give them a social security number is when they've hired you and they needed to do a background check or they need it for taxes. So, other things you can look at, these are just some types of things, like you have a bill that comes to you at a certain time and it doesn't. You're getting charges on your credit card that are not yours, of course, that's a big red flag. If you're being contacted by a company saying that you haven't paid a bill, and it's now gone to collections. Someone might be using your ID, maybe your credit card. So another one that's big, remember the Anthem one with the 80 million people affected by that, is stealing this information and then repackaging it and selling it on the black market so that people can use this information to get medical services. So in your explanation of benefits from your insurance company, read that. What it's saying, because there might be something on there that has medical service that you didn't get. So read that thoroughly, because people who are they're stealing this information getting it. Yes?
Are debt collector calls for phishing?
They could be. Yeah, they could be. Don't give out any information if you believe that that's what it is. Yeah, there's
some
possibility.
really harassing calls right now where they say that they're from the IRS or they're from a bill collector, and you need to contact your attorney and call back immediately, and they'll leave you voicemails on your phone. This is happening in Oregon.
Yeah, just ignore those. I got one now maybe a month ago on my cell phone. It was a voicemail. It was a male, identified himself as, I want to say Pasco Police Department or somewhere up in Washington, and something about an outstanding ticket, or I don't remember now what it was. What was funny to me is that he had a very distinct Australian accent. I thought, okay, yeah, buddy, I'm not calling you back. But they do, and this is where it happens with seniors, is that they will get calls saying they're from the Department of Treasury, they're collecting, Department of Treasury doesn't do that, or this is the police department, sheriff's department, whatever, we have a warrant out for your arrest, or you haven't paid for this, pay this immediately, wire us the money, you'll be thrown in jail. Very scary to people. So they don't do this. Law enforcement, government do not do this. They're not on the phone and harassing you. If there's a legitimate bill collector that is harassing, they have parameters in Oregon on what they can do, how they can do it. This is kind of funky, but our agency licensed them, but the Department of Justice or the Attorney General's office is the one who enforces what they have to do. So if there's any complaints with that, contact the AG's office. Okay, laundry list of what we are supposed to do. Of course, shred, cross-cut shredder is the best, or go to a free shredding event.
I
Yes?
just want to point out that the City of Beaverton Police Department has a shredding operation on Saturday mornings every other month.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
free.
Which Saturday of the month?
Well, it was just in August, I think it's the second Saturday generally. And it was August, so it'll be again in October.
October,
and
okay.
it's off of Cornell.
And it's probably on the website.
Yeah.
I think every city pretty much does those kinds of events, you just have to look it up for your city.
Yeah,
All of
maybe.
them.
Although I have it with Salem, but I don't need the local, so. Okay, shred. This means being careful about who you give information to. Really think about it. And for those people that you help out, tell them to be very careful. This is a day and age where people are using information and are taking advantage of them. It's kind of like, remember years ago, people say, well, we never locked our doors.
Yeah.
Well, we have to lock our doors, and we have to lock our electronic doors as well. That's just the way it is. My sister is very frustrated constantly with her mother-in-law. She lives down in North Bend, and she's kind of like that. Well, you know, I never locked my doors or windows, and my sister is ultra security conscious. So, it drives her crazy. Again, we talked about with phone, being very careful about who's on the other end. I always say hang up and then call whoever you think is contacting you. So if it's your bank, or if it's someone you're working with is their bank, then you contact the bank. Don't use the number that was given in this phone call, because